Well, guys, I'm here for what is going to be my all-time favorite podcast. Undoubtedly, I'm here with Christian, and Christian is a Munich historian. I'm here in where are we again?
Like in a very old house from one of the oldest houses in Munich from the 14th century or at the
From the
moment.
14th century. They turned it into a museum and a restaurant, and of course, they also serve beer. So today, you're going to learn a little bit about beer, and especially about Munich beer. Christian is not just a Munich historian; he's also a beer historian. He's a beer expert, a Munich beer expert. So he's going to kind of walk us through the details of Munich beer. So again, going to be my all-time favorite podcast because of course, we're going to have to taste test them as we go. So Christian, thanks for doing this with me. I'm sure it's not too much of a problem for you as well. So I hope you enjoy it.
Work is work.
Work is work. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
It's kind of a cliche now, huh?
It is. It is. But
German historian who drinks just beer. Yeah, that's
well,
no.
fitting.
We are full of cliches.
Yeah, we are
Perfect.
full of cliches. So I guess my first question is: there are many people probably in the U.S. who've never heard of the oldest law or oldest food law in the world.
No. Yeah, the oldest food law in the world is the so-called, in German we call it the Bayerische Reinheitsgebot. It's in English the Bavarian purity law. It's like a law which yeah, is for the brewing industry here very important. It's from the year 1516, so a little more than 500 years old now. And in this law, it's written down which ingredients you can put into your to brew in your beer or not. And there are just three ones. It's water, sure, barley malt, and hops, not more. And since today, even today, our breweries they are follow strictly this very old rule, and that's maybe one of the reasons why German beer or Bavarian beer, in especially, is so yeah, is known for the high quality maybe in the whole world. Yes.
Yeah, and I guess my comment on that is that I think you can find many good beers in America and across. My favorite beer actually is from Czech Republic. I don't know all their laws and stuff for beer, but what you will almost never find in Germany is a bad beer. So you'll find some that are not great,
Yeah.
some that are better, but they're almost never bad because they have a law that if you call yourself beer, then you have to have these three things. So it's pretty rough to have. You can't typically have a cherry beer or like you can in the U.S. So beer is very specific.
Beer tastes always like beer in Germany.
Exactly.
So that's an unwritten or that's a written law actually.
Right.
Because like also beer drinking or the beer culture, the beer history here, especially here in Munich or Bavaria in the south of Germany, is very long, and it's a very old tradition. Also with the circumstance that in former times beer was part of the daily the daily meal plan for the people, so they drank it every day. It was important because in it is lots of vitamins and minerals and something like that. So it was very important, and so we call it also like kind of food here even today. And so that's maybe also the reason why our society is much more tolerant about beer drinking than, for example, in the US. For example, I think in the US the minimum age for drinking beer is like
21.
21, right?
Yeah.
Right. So here in Germany, it's allowed to drink beer when you turn 16, and when you go, for example, with your parents into a restaurant, for example, and you are 14 or minimum 14, then it's also legal to order a beer. So it's a little different. So
Yeah.
in Germany, it's very special. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting too when you talk about that with the beer that it was really part of your meal plan, but it was a very different type of beer. I think, right? It was much less alcohol. It was much more, I don't know, yeast, or I don't know exactly. Maybe you can explain that, but it was not exactly what we come to think of today because it was not as strong. I don't imagine you always see monks on these brew bottles, but I think typically it would not have been them sitting back and swigging down some beer to get tipsy. They were drinking it because it was actually part of their fast. So it's not
definitely not that. It's not true that the beer was that strong in former times than like today. So today a normal for Germans or for Bavarians, a normal bright lager beer is something between like 4.8% and 5.2% alcohol. That's normal here in these areas. So in former times, so 19th century and before, The people in their daily life, they drink more or less, we call it thin beer or light, you would call it light beer maybe. And this special type of beer had just like something between 1 and 2% alcohol, so much less.
Yeah.
And even the monks, for example, during Lent when they didn't eat, so they had to drink more, because when you drink you don't break the fasting rules, right?
Right.
And so they had to brew a very strong beer, and strong means in this case not with much alcohol, just with much calories. So they stopped the brewery, the fermentation process very early. And then you got a beer with lots of sugar or kind of energy in it, but not just very less alcohol. And that's the strong beer from the monks in former times. So, but today we fermentate it to the end, and then we have these strong beers with 7-8% alcohol or something. So that's maybe the difference.
But you said before we started this that there is kind of coming more into vogue, more into popularity, the alcohol-free beers, and that's something that I see quite often as well. That it has kind of the taste, obviously, and the nutrients. It's actually something that I would recommend if you go on a long hike, you're climbing up a mountain. Don't bring a beer, because you bring a beer on top of the mountain, you're gonna get pretty tipsy. Though, okay, maybe one, but don't overdo it, guys. But actually, an alcohol-free beer after a long hike is really nice, because it replenishes a lot of the things that your body is.
Lots of minerals and something.
Yeah, exactly.
And also like the alcohol-free. I have no idea how it's in the United States at the moment, but here in Germany, the trend to drink not so much alcohol anymore got stronger, or gets stronger and stronger. So even many breweries, or most of our breweries here in Bavaria or in Germany, they also have now alcohol-free beers. And even like the Augustiner brewery, where I'm kind of working for, is also one of the big 6 Munich breweries, very famous here in Germany, and one of the best beers for sure in Bavaria. And even they have now, since 1 year now, alcohol-free beer, because the trend is right to not so much alcohol anymore.
Only 1 year, interesting. Yeah,
they were the last one.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Well, and it's actually good. It's a good point, a good segue to say that everyone make sure to remember this. Really important that if you drink alcohol, do it responsibly, and don't drink and drive. These things that you hear them all the time. Your parents tell you them, but it is unimaginably important. First of all, to drive. You can kill yourself or other people. Never ever do that, and drink responsibly, because it is. No one likes someone who overdrinks. I mean, it doesn't help you. Your body for sure isn't helped by it, and the people around you are not going to be helped by it. You're not going to be good to anybody. So drink responsibly, drink appropriately, and of course for Catholics to do it in moderation. But we also know, as if you read the Bible, our Lord Himself did turn water into wine at the end of a wedding party, and it was the best wine. So let's keep in mind that alcohol in itself is no evil. It can be quite a good, I think, but again, all in moderation. As we start this podcast about beer, so so
maybe we should go to practice now.
I need a little bit to wet my whistle, to talk a little.
For the people who watch, we gonna taste a few different types of beer, and I will explain a little bit about these special types of beer, how they produce it, and also how the history was behind it, maybe, because there's also a hundreds of year long process, because you have to know the Augustiner brewery, so the beer from what we taste now, it's almost 700 years old now. So it's also has a long tradition, let's say. And for sure today, the most famous one here in Munich, in Bavaria, in Germany, and also over our borders. That's the most famous beer we have is our lager beer Hell. So it's this one.
It's a funny name, guys. He'll explain it, okay? That doesn't have anything to do with the devil or anything.
So Hell is a German word and means bright. So it's a bright lager beer. Before I talk about this beer, maybe we can have a little.
And I have to say, this is one of my favorite beers, even though it is mass produced. It is a big company. It's a very good beer, and I'm not just saying that because we're drinking it. It really is. If I have to go and buy a case of beer, I will typically get Augustiner lager beer, because it really is it's a safe bet. It's a really smooth Helles, and it's very.
So as you can see here, sorry for interrupting. As you can see here, so it's a bright one. It's a You sure you can see it? It's a bright beer. It's a lager beer, and maybe a few words about the producing or brewing process. But first of all, we have to taste.
Yeah.
Cheers. Prost.
Prost. That's good.
So we have a saying here in Bavaria: "Helles geht immer." Or a schnelles Helles. So the first one means Helles geht immer is like a bright beer, works always, and the second one is a schnelles Helles. It's a let's go for a schnelles Helles means just a quick beer, and that means this one because this is a beer you can drink like it's a daily beer more or less. You can drink it. It's very smooth. The taste is very smooth. It's not so bitter. It's round and it's perfect more or less. Also the foam up, the white foam stands very good in the glass and something. Then
Good from the bottle too, I have to say. It's actually another one that I.
so drafted is much better than because it's fresher. And also here for the Augustiner Brewery, they draft their beer also out of wooden barrels, so that's a little special because it's old-fashioned. And also the taste is different, but to the brewing process maybe. So it's a so-called, so it's brewed after the Bavarian purity law, sure. So just 3 ingredients: water, barley malt, and hops. And it's a so-called bottom fermented beer. So it means that they, so for the fermentation process, you need yeast. Because without yeast you cannot transform the sugar to alcohol. And so you put yeast in it, and it's a so-called bottom fermenting yeast. Because when you put it into your pot, then during the fermentation process it sinks down, and at the end it lays on the ground, and that's the reason why we call it bottom fermenting, because it's fermented to the bottom, and that's the reason why we call it like this. It's since 500 years the normal brewery way to brew here in Bavaria at least. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have not also a top fermenting beer that's for the wheat beer. We will taste it later, but most of our beers, bright and dark ones, they are bottom fermented. Yes, and taste, like I said, the taste is perfect. Like it's not so bitter. It's not like a Pils, the German Pils. It's not so bitter. It's a little sweeter, just for drinking.
I think most anyone who likes beer at all would like this beer. I mean, it's if you don't like beer, then you're not gonna like any beer, right? But if you like any beer, this one I would be surprised if anyone didn't like it. Though,
and it don't taste like Bud Light.
It does not, no. Like Bud Light does not taste like beer. Yeah. Bud Light's like water and other disgusting stuff. But this, I mean, my brothers came over and they tasted this, and they surprisingly they preferred wheat beer. But actually, I did too when I first. I don't actually.
Yeah, because it's sweeter.
Maybe that could be. Yeah, that's
because
we'll
that's
later,
different. So go there because there's no sugar anymore in it, so it's not sweet. It's good. It's a very good taste, but it's not sweet. And I said it's not so. I said already it's not so heavy. But in the case of the Augustiner beer, because Augustiner Brewery, they brew their beer in general a little stronger than other breweries, because this bright lager beer has 5.2%. Wow. So that's for a lager beer, like the more or less the maximum what we normally do.
Interesting. One, I know, like I'd say a Bud Light, I think, or a Budweiser, let's say, would be 3.3. I think. Yeah. So I think that's the common light beer in the U.S. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's been a long time since I've had an American beer, but I think that's the case. So it's a much stronger beer than normal. So I imagine that's probably why Americans come over for the Oktoberfest, drink 2 or 3 beers, which they can do in the U.S. without a problem, and get a little bit.
Yeah, but for example, for the Oktoberfest, we brew a special beer then, because it's like a little more, like, not sweeter, but it's not even more drinkable.
Okay.
Even more it goes better down, and because there's not so much hops in it. Because hops is the ingredients which create the bitterness in the beer. And when you put not so much hops in it, then it's not so bitter. But when you don't put so much hops in it, then it holds not so long. So you have to drink it in a short time. But it's for the Oktoberfest not a problem, because we just need it for a few weeks in here. So they brew it, and that's even stronger. So this year, it depends on years. It's more but this year or last year, better say, last year they had 6 0.3% alcohol. So that's for at least for foreigners, so Americans or Australians or something. They have to get it in their mind when they start drinking the Oktoberfest, because that's a strong beer actually. So when you drink a few liters about that, then you're over. You know.
Right. Drink responsibly.
Yeah.
And if you come to Germany for the Oktoberfest, which is fine, I highly recommend that you also go to a regional fest. Go to Rosenheim or Traunstein, or even a little tiny town like I have where I live. The fests are much more traditional.
Yeah.
The clothing is much more traditional and much nicer, much more appropriate, modest, etc. But also just looks better. You go to the Oktoberfest here and you see, plastic dirndls and plastic lederhosen, and it's very touristic, very touristic. It's worth it. It's worth looking at it because it is interesting and it's big. But I highly recommend again that you go.
But it's today more or less like a show.
Yeah, exactly. You don't really get the full impression of what German beer tents, the atmosphere that so many of these others have. I don't know if you want to go into the next beer. I'm just going to make sure our video is still running. Looks like it. If not, we're gonna have to do this all again. So.
We have to drink all again. Oh,
yeah, tough life. Well, it's funny that Christian, as we're preparing, I'm like, okay, let's talk about this, and this, and he lines up all these beers. I'm like, how are we gonna do this? He's like, no, we don't have to drink all of them. So I was like, oh, that's okay. And I haven't had lunch yet, so I think Christian we're gonna eat after this. So so maybe not the hard beer.
Just a few sips. Last words to the bright one, to the normal lager one. It's for Munichs or for Bavarians. It's a very new beer actually, because they just started, or the Munich breweries, for example, they started brewing bright beers, or like we know it today at least, bright beers, lager beers, since 1900. So it's just almost 120 years, 130 years old. It's not that old. So it depends on Americans.
Comparison, right.
Americans 130 years is much old, but when you have in your mind that this brewery, for example, is 700 years old, then 130 years is not so much.
Right.
The reason behind it is because our water quality here in the town is not that good for brewing actually, or to brew bright beer, because when you want to brew a bright beer, you need soft water, so with not so much calcium in it. And our water here comes from the Alps, and so it's very hard, and so it's not very useful for bright beer. And so we have to make it before we can use it for the brewing process. We have to make it soft. And that was just possible around 1900, and so that was the reason why we should start to do it, because the bright beer came from up to the north, because in North Germany, East Germany, or Czech Republic, for example, the brewing tradition of bright beer is much older, because their water quality there is just better for bright beer. So it's just a question of the water.
And what do they call it? So outside of Bavaria, I know it has a different name. I think in Baden-Württemberg they call it export.
Yeah. So the helles the bright lager one, the helles beer, is it's a Bavarian type beer. It's just a thing it came from Munich. It was invented in Munich actually. And in other areas they call it a little different. Also the beer is a little different, so a little stronger, a little more bitter or something like that. So the export from Baden-Württemberg, for example, where also I came from, is more southwest. It's a mixture between the helles and Pils.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of because so as you can see, beer culture in Germany is not equal beer culture in Germany. So it depends on in which area you are. And now we are in Munich, and that's
the best beer.
That's the best beer. Yeah, I have to say also it's the best beer, and
Though I've had some Hefeweizen beer from Baden that was very good, I have to say. And again, my favorite beer I've ever had was on a street corner in Prague. And it was just a street beer. I don't even know. They pulled out of a keg, and it was this reddish, sweeter beer. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
I can
they have also
picture it.
The Prague, the Czechs, or the Böhmen. I don't know. Like the Czechs. Like let's say the Czechs. So it was in former times Germany. in the 19th century, for example, and they have also like a long brewing tradition there. And it's perfect. In Prague, to go in Prague to the brewery, I was like last year in Prague for a few days, and I went into a brewery from the 15th century, and also the building was from the 15th century. It was perfect, and you had to have some beers there. It was like unbelievable nice. But let's go further because now we tasted the Helles.
I know you guys are jealous. I'm sorry. You can't transport the taste.
Sorry,
you got to come visit. You have to come visit in
yeah.
Munich. What can we say?
And now the next one is the dark beer. And also when you can see at the etiquette, like there are some monks who also drink, and that has also something to do with the tradition of this beer, because that is historically that is the much older beer, because that is the historical correct way to drink beer here in Munich, because it's dark beer, and with dark beer you can also use hot water. And that was the reason why we drank that for centuries.
Interesting. But dark beer, but I guess again they would have had dark beer with a lesser percent of alcohol. So what is it? I used to think that to be darker meant to have more alcohol, but that's not necessarily the case.
The dark. So I told you that like the bitterness is connected to hops, one of the ingredients, and the darkness of a beer is connected to the barley malt. Barley malt, because you have, before you can brew it, or it can use for brewing, you have to roast it. Like coffee or something.
Yeah.
And when you roast it with higher temperatures, then the barley malt get darker, and with lower temperatures not so dark. And then we have like bright malt and dark malt, and with dark malt you brew dark beer, and with bright malt bright beer. So that's the big secret behind it. Normally, dark beers are also a little stronger than bright beers, because for example, this one has now 5.6%.
Oh, so it's only a little bit more.
Yeah, a little. But you will see like the aromatas in this beer, as you can see here, it's like, it's perfect. It's not so dark. It's not so dark. They are much darker beers.
Yeah,
actually.
like Guinness almost. Yeah.
That's a very smooth dark beer. But also in this case, you will recognize the roasting aromatas, and the malt aromatas are much stronger in this beer. So this way, cheers. Pause.
Yeah, but still pretty smooth. But you definitely taste the malt.
Yeah.
It's certainly much malty. Like it's a totally different beer.
The taste is heavier, let's say. No, it's stronger
and
heavier.
nuttier.
Yeah. And that's also the reason why this is not so famous anymore, like the bright one, because
people have feminine taste, or I don't know if that's the right word, but softer tastes. Our tastes have gotten a little delicate. That's the word.
And also the problem is that the taste is so strong that there are too many people in this world who don't like this beer. Yeah. So the bright one is not so strong in the taste, and so it's more a mass beer than this one.
Sure.
But it's the historical correct way to drink beer here. So that's also one of the reasons why I normally prefer the dark one, and not the only.
He's
one.
an historian. I mean,
I'm
can't drink the 100-year-old beer. This is silly. You know, he's gotta go with the dark stuff.
But for the brewing process, it's more or less exactly the same, except the roasting temperature. It's exact the same process like the bright beer. It's a button fermented beer with same ingredients for sure. So it's just the roasting stuff. The roasting part is different. That's the whole difference between the.
And so the burning it that much hotter gives it that much of a different taste. Yeah. It's a very different.
It's
taste.
like when you compare different types of coffee, for example. When you have a strong roasted coffee, then it's also more bitter or more roasting. And when you have a very, very soft roasted coffee, then also the taste is different. It's the same with beer.
Interesting.
It's the same with beer.
That makes sense. So then I know you also got a Starkbier here somewhere. So
we have two
of them. Okay, so these are interesting too, because that's what I would have thought back before I knew anything about beer, was that again, if it was dark, it just meant it was more alcohol, which is again, Christian just explained, that's not the case. It was just the roasting process.
So we have and the can I say strongness? Strength, thank you. The strength of beer is also have more or less nothing to do with the color. Because, for example, we have here, so you have to know, in Bavaria we call our strong beers, and strong beer is 7% alcohol and more. One of our strong beers is like the Maibock, also Maibock, and Bock is a Bavarian word for strong beer, and Maibock is like the strong beer what we drink actually in May.
Oh, okay.
So it's a spring beer, let's say.
Interesting.
It's here. It's like in this bottle. It's a bright one. It's more or less the same color like the Helles. Little more golden because it's stronger.
Yeah.
But a bright one. But 7.5% alcohol.
Wow.
This is this one.
So be careful.
Yeah.
Be careful when you see a beer that looks like it looks like it's brighter, and you're just guzzling it down.
The color don't say something about the strength. And the other one is our Maximator. That's a dark strong beer.
I like the cover.
Yeah, it's also like from the color from like this. And it's nice. Also 7.5% alcohol, and that's the beer actually for Lent time.
Oh.
So that's the fasting beer. But
Okay.
for example, fermented till the end. So that's the reason why we have 7.5%. And with this one is very nice because like there's a long tradition with these Maximator. So there ends every time of Arthur.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, so
I've seen
Maximator,
Salvator,
and
yeah.
something like that. So they are very nice because like it is also kind of a tradition here in Munich to have our Starkbier Anstich. That's like that's a long German word. It's like it's like Oktoberfest, but older. It came from the 18th century, and it was in the right before Lent started. And it was also kind of, we also have to even also today, and it's also kind of like a Volksfest, but we drink there this one, and it has something to do with our Paulaner monastery, Paulaner cloistery.
You've probably seen Paulaner. I bet you've seen that in the US. Yeah.
It's also a brewery because
Exported, yeah.
like Augustiner is also Augustine monks. It was till the secularization beginning 19th century. It was a monastery brewery.
Yeah.
And also the Paulaner brewery is also a big Munich brewery. They were also a monastery brewery, and they invented kind of this special type of strong beer, and they brew it. And the first and then when they opened at beginning of Lent the first keg or the first barrel, then they gave the first mass beer, so the first liter stein beer to our king.
Okay.
And with the very nice little Latin poem, Salve Pater Patriae Bibas Princeps Optime. It's called like drink, Father of the Fatherland. Like say hello, greetings to the Father of Fatherland. Drink, King.
Yes,
like
cool.
it's a bad translation.
Interesting. Yeah.
And this is all more or less the same like what we do today in Oktoberfest. So it starts more or less with this beer. But I have also to say what the monks drank in former times. It was not like this. It was the same beer, but they stopped the fermentation process, and so many calories like this.
Yeah.
But very less alcohol.
Interesting. I had one time. I don't remember where, and I drank one of the actual Lent beers, and I think 2% alcohol or something, and it was not good.
Yeah, we call it also. We call it down strong beer. We call it Nährbier. It's like a grocery beer. Let's say like this. There are still 2 breweries in Bavaria which brew this special type of beer, but it tastes not good. It tastes just not good.
Yeah.
So it should be like kind of a
penance. It's for Lent.
One time in my life I will try it.
So you have do you have one meal and then only
no meals.
No meals. You
just
only drink
the beer.
Oh,
just
man.
like 4 liters of this beer per day.
That would be a penance. And again, it sounds like I can just drink beer. No,
Just beer. 40 days.
Yeah, that's tough. Wow, interesting. Beer fest. I kind of do like this idea. No, it's interesting. Though I have to say, if you're drinking that type of dark beer or strong beer in a Mass, that's only a true Bavarian. Don't try that. No one try that who visits.
Even me, for example, when I go to like these during the strong beer time, the Lent time, like for example at Sunday or something, to one of these like into a restaurants or something like that, and have a few strong beers with friends or something, I just take smaller glasses.
Yeah, yeah,
not the big one because they break your neck.
Yeah.
It will break your neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, nice. Well, so we have one more left that we want to show, I think. I also see the export beer, but I'd say the Weiss beer. Because the Weiss beer is that's something that, again, you've probably seen it in the U.S. if you're watching from the U.S. England and stuff, I have no idea, honestly. British beer, I'm sorry for you guys. I'm sorry. Everyone wonders why British are so melancholic and, their comedy is so dark and stuff. It's because their beer is terrible. It's because their beer is terrible.
They are ale.
Oh, it's terrible. So anyone, I'm sure you've probably seen these wheat beers. I know in the U.S. you have a lot of the wheat beers are turned into kind of like what we call a Radler, which actually we don't have. That's another interesting thing. But it's pretty much that's not a wheat beer. But that's a beer with lemonade. But I know in the U.S. you'll see these wheat beers with lemonade and stuff. And I guess this is, kind of. Well, I'll let Christian. I'll let the boss describe.
That's ours. That's the wheat beer from Augustina. So nice bottle, 5.4%, and it's a completely different beer than the other two because it's a different way for brewing they use for this beer.
Well, this one I think you're technically supposed to have a different glass, right? Oh,
technically, yes.
Almost a party foul. No, perfect. I did it.
Not me. So that's also a big thing here in Bavaria or in Germany in general. In general, we have different types of glasses for the different types of beers. Because these glasses we use at the moment, they are normally just for pills. This one, it's a bitter beer, very bitter beer. It came from the north. Then we have other mugs or other type of glasses for our bright and dark beer, and then we have also different glasses for our wheat beer, and also different glasses actually for our strong beers and something. So you have to learn.
Germans are melancholic. They're very picky with these types of things. But there is a reason. I know that's again. Well, Christian will explain this, but there's a reason why the cups are shaped differently and whatnot. It isn't just to be cool. There is an actual.
It has nothing to do with the taste, and the taste is like, for example, the glasses for the wheat beer is like they are at the top. They are much bigger or much wider than at the bottom, and it has something to do with the brewing process because that is not a bottom fermented beer; it's a top fermented beer. So that means they use a different type of yeast, and by the way, the yeast is still inside because then you cannot look through it, so it's not filtered like the other beers. The yeast is still inside, and that's good for top fermenting beers. So the top fermenting yeast sinks not down to the bottom; it comes up. Like at the end, it's at the very surface of your beer
barrel
or something. And also it's a different type of yeast, and also during the fermentation process, it produces a different type of flavors and something. And so that's the reason why this beer tastes so much different, or so much more fruity and sweeter than the other bottom fermented beers.
Yeah.
So
it is. It's very
cheers.
Very smooth and kind of almost like banana. That's what I always describe. I don't know. Some people I've told that to some people, they're like banana, but I think there's a fruity.
It's kind of fruity. It's fruity, and one of the flavors will remember you very strong to banana. But when you're very very concentrated, then you can also taste little flavor, very 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 little flavor, ananas inside.
Pineapple. Yeah, I could see that.
Kind of. So so the fact is it's much more fruity, and fruitier, and that's the reason is because they use a different type of yeast.
Interesting. Okay. But the rest of the brewing process is
it's more or less the same. And no, there's also much more another big difference because there is not just barley malt inside; it's also wheat malt. That's the reason why we call it wheat beer. At least 51% of the malt has to be wheat malt. And when we are very strict, then we have to say this beer doesn't follow the Bavarian purity law.
Oh, because it's 4 ingredients. Though it's also malt. Interesting.
Yeah, but it's a different type of malt. And in the purity law we have written down just barley malt. But it was no problem for centuries, because here in Bavaria it was from the 16th century to the 19th century forbidden for normal breweries to brew this special type of beer.
Yeah.
It was just allowed for the breweries owned by our kings. Why? Why? Yeah, there are two reasons. The official reason is that in former times, for sure, wheat is a very is a big thing for baking bread. You know, it's important. And for example, when you have not so good growing here in summer, then you have to be careful with your wheat, because otherwise you will have no bread anymore. And to be honest, when you want to give or when you will give a sack full of wheat grains to a Bavarian guy, and you
What's he gonna do with it?
You ask him beer or bread, then he will also always decide beer.
Of
sure.
course.
And so that's one of the reasons why our kings had a very strong monopoly on this brewery or this brewing
That makes sense.
or this beer. But the second reason is, and it's the unofficial reason, with this beer you could earn a lot of money in the 18th century, because it was like a kind of a trendy drink in the 18th century. And you have to know, in the 18th century, for example, 10% of the whole state income of Bavaria was produced or was with selling the wheat beer. But, wow! So it was a big thing for our state, much money. And so that was also one of the reasons why. And then in the 19th century, the taste from the people changed a little bit, and so they stopped drinking a lot of wheat beer. And at this moment, our kings said, okay, now it's free for everyone to brew it, because it was not a big. And even today, it's not a big thing anymore. Just a few percent of that, what for example the Augustiner brewery, 2 or 3% of the whole beer what they brew. And it's more or less like how many per year? 160 million liters beer per year. And there's just 2% or something is wheat beer.
Is it really?
It's a very small thing.
Interesting. Okay, I wouldn't have thought that. You see a lot of wheat beers in Bavaria, at least.
Yeah, but Helles is much
bigger.
Common.
Okay, interesting. I wouldn't have thought that. No, it's good, and it is like, again, anyone who comes, I'd highly suggest it, because it is very different from most things you would have tasted. I think even the wheat beers in the U.S., I've not yet had one that tastes like this. So that would be the one, and this is one that many of the visitors who come, the younger guys too, who came, they really liked this, because it was it's kind of sweeter, smoother. Even though the lager beer is also very pleasant. Very mild.
But be careful, because Bavarian beers are in average stronger than what you are normally drinking in the US. So be careful a little bit. You have to know what you drink, but for sure we could taste much more beers now, because for example we have also noticed the new thing, the alcohol-free beer. It's with under 0.5% alcohol, because the trend is to alcohol-free. Then we have already showed you, it's the Pils. It's a different type of bright lager beer, much more bitter. It's also here in the south not a very big thing, because it's much more on North Germany stuff.
And that comes from Czech Republic.
Pilsen is like a city in Czech Republic, and
that one is more for if you only kind of like beer, you probably won't like Pils, to be honest. I mean, at least my opinion,
because it's bitter.
I mean, Budweiser. There's an original Budweiser from Czech Republic, right, which is a Pilsner, which kind of, I guess they took the name and kind of the brewing from Czech, and it's Budweiser has kind of that bitterness. It's a very sham version of the original Budweiser, which I have had. But Pils is not my favorite. It's a little too bitter for me, and again, I like Czech beer, but whatever I had must not have been a Pils. Actually, I don't even know.
And then the last one in our what we sell from Augustina is this one. We call it Edelstoff. It's a nice word actually, because it's like how you would translate it, Edelstoff in English?
Royalty or kind of it's for your high end.
Right.
Kind of your.
It's also a bright lager beer, but it's a little stronger and a little fresher, and also a little. It's the taste is a little more. It's just a little more than the normal lager beer.
Luxury beer.
It's luxury beer, yes. But it's also a nice one. Yeah. So many different types of beer for sure. We cannot try them at try everyone every.
We already have 3 open, so we have to.
Because.
We don't have
responsible.
Exactly. I gotta work tomorrow, and I'm sure Christian does too.
Yeah. No, and so, but as you can see, lots of different types, and also these, like for example, a bright beer, a lager beer, is not the same. Augustiner lager beer is not the same like a Paulaner lager beer, for example. So it changed also from brewery to brewery, and you have to know we have over 1,000 breweries in Germany, and even in Bavaria, and a few thousand in whole Germany. So as you can see, the beer drinking or producing culture here, or the culture around the beer here, especially in Munich, Bavaria, is very strong. Yeah. Just a few two words like beer garden and something like that. So drinking beer is a normal thing here.
Yeah,
like
kind of like Italians and wine.
Yeah,
French and wine, I suppose.
Yeah.
And it's a nice atmosphere, I think, and it's something that you can't really experience unless you come here. And again, don't just go to the Oktoberfest. You got to really go out in the country and go to these little smaller fests, and come visit Christian. Maybe he'll give you a tour of Munich. He is a professional tour guide as well, so he's very good at this stuff. And you got to pay him a little bit. And actually, I do want, if you all can, I'll attach a PayPal. I don't know if Christian's got PayPal. I haven't asked him this before, but if not, I'll attach mine, and you can give Christian a couple tips, because he's still a student, and he does still need beer money. So, he did not say anything about this. I didn't even bring it up. But it'd be nice. It would be nice if you can. I mean, literally $1 or $2. I mean, it would be nice, just because, again, he took the time to come here and meet with me. And so if you can do that, if you send it to me, I don't know. Do you have PayPal?
Yes.
Then we'll attach Christian's PayPal. You can send it right to him and say, Christian, here's a $5 tip for go get yourself a beer or two in Munich. Christian, I really appreciate it. It was really interesting, and I learned something and got to drink beer. We hope everyone else enjoyed this, and please do ask questions in the comments. I imagine I'm going to tell Christian, especially if he's going to get tips, he has to respond to the comments. So that's the one thing he's got to keep doing his job. If you have any questions for him about beer or the brewing process, or even about Munich, Christian and we hope to do more videos in the future about Munich. I mean, just Christian's PhD study is really, really interesting. It's something that I'd like to talk to him about sometime in the future. I think that with that in a couple months. Yeah, getting close. He's gonna be doctor.
June.
Herr Dr. Christian. Maybe then we'll talk to him about his PhD. But it's gonna be really good stuff. Hopefully he'll join us here again on the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. Hit the bell. Make sure you hit the bell, so then you know that there's a podcast up and that you need to watch it. So again, we hope you enjoy this beer. Maybe next time we'll do about cigars, because Christian's got pretty good cigar knowledge, and I need an excuse to smoke cigars because Ina doesn't like it. So maybe we'll do that next time. But let us know what you would like to hear from Christian. He is, again, a Munich historian, but a historian in general. And maybe he will oblige for another show where maybe he and I will just meet and sit around beers and have a chat about something. So let us know in the comment section. Till next time, thank you very much, Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you for the beer.